Sounds good.
Welcome to the Conversations with Catholics, Kevin on Tradicath show, whatever you want to call this. This is something like episode 21, and I'm very excited today to be joined by a rather unique content creator in Catholic YouTube, the Catholic content space, Angela from Integrated with Angela. What's up, Angela?
Hi, thanks for having me on, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I always feel like a little funny reaching out to Catholics, saying like, hey, like I do this show, Conversations with Catholics, where I'm not Catholic, but I try to foster conversations. And I want to say that, and so my friend Colin's in the audience. What's up, Colin? Hey, Dan, what's going on? Um, it's always like a little bit of me putting you on the spot a little bit. So I'm super grateful to all of my guests, Angela, you included. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you.
I've got some questions for you that are kind of tailored towards your. I think you have a unique niche, kind of, in the Catholic influencer space, if I can call it that. Um,
Thank you. I mean, I don't feel like it's that unique, but I appreciate that. I'm glad that other people see that it is maybe a little bit different.
I think it's a little bit different. So,
Hey, Mac. Okay,
yeah,
I love Mac. Mac is the bomb.com. He's the
macisthebomb.com.
best.
Um, okay, so the first question I've got teed up for you, if you're ready for them, is
Let's do it.
sweet. So a lot of Catholics seem to have channels, and I'm going to use the word blatant for lack of a better word, but their channel names are blatantly Catholic.
Hmm.
I'm thinking about names like Catholic Answers. There's no there's no question that that's a Catholic organization. Integrated with Angela doesn't strike me as something that's blatantly Catholic.
Hmm.
So I guess my question for you is, what is integrated with Angela? What does integrated mean? What does it mean to you specifically? And then how does integration kind of fit into Catholicism?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. It's something that I am continually evaluating. I did name it Integrated with Angela Erickson for a few reasons. And I did want it to be somewhat broad so that it could be more of an evangelistic tool instead of just a mere Catholic catechesis tool. Even though it is very much that, I don't shy away from my Catholic faith at all. It is the substance of my content. Um, but I have a lot of family, especially my in-laws. They're not Catholic. I have a lot of family members who have left the church and have come back. And I know a lot of people in my own life who have converted to Catholicism. And so I never wanted to create something that was explicitly like, this is Catholic only. I don't want you here if you're not Catholic. So that was part of why it's not explicitly like Catholicism with Angela Erickson or something.
So I'm
But
allowed to be subscribed, is what you're saying. It's okay. Okay,
absolutely.
good, good.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Thank you. No, and two, I wanted to have some of those. Yeah, I just want more varied content. Now, what does it mean to be integrated, in my opinion? So, one of the reasons I even thought of integration was because during 2020, maybe a little bit prior to that, I was really struggling. It was actually really more after 2020. I had a really difficult child after birth. I had a lot of postpartum depression and suicidal ideation and things like that. And I was realizing that there were many issues going on with him and his body, and that needed to be done. And so I was addressing a lot of his needs on a physical level, and praying for him, of course, but then looking at the nourishment and how his body is made in like the most incredible way, and the nervous system and all these things. For anyone who's familiar with oral ties and the fascia in the body and all this stuff, the way that it is integrated is absolutely incredible. So I was looking at all these systems and realizing how important integration is, and realizing it on a larger scale as incarnational beings, which I believe that we are. I believe that we have a soul and a body that are perfectly integrated. And it was like, is part of the reason we're struggling so much culturally because so many of us are disintegrated. There's a lot of dualism where we've sort of separated the body and the soul. You see that in the transgenderism movement, things like that. I just see a lot of disintegration in families. Is that, and the roots that you see with mother wounds and father wounds and just the foundation cracking for children. What is that? How does that shape us? And how do we bring these things back into integration so that we can live whole lives where things are rightly ordered again? So that's basically a very long way of saying, like, that's what I believe integration is. I believe it's mental, spiritual, physical. It's all of these aspects coming together that is properly ordered towards God.
Cool. I didn't want to interrupt your flow. But so you said Mac is the best, and Mac said no, you are, Angela.
Should I keep going? Oh no, you are.
I also want to say hi to my friend Jason. And Jason and Colin, you guys should talk. That's all I'm gonna say. And so Colin's saying maybe push back a little bit on dualism as a Catholic. So I'm not sure exactly. So Colin, I might ask you to put a little bit more in the comments. So what I heard Angela saying, and Angela, please do correct me if I'm wrong. But I think that you were saying, so part of integration is like this kind of body soul integration, right? And you probably, you might, and again, don't let me put words in your mouth. You probably view the mind and the soul as kind of being, the same. I feel like a lot of Catholics kind of use mind and soul to mean the same thing. So human beings are dualistic, right? There's the body, and then there's also the non-body part of being human.
Right.
Right. And so a lot of non-Catholics disagree. I do. You and I aren't here to debate dualism today, though.
Right.
So Colin, maybe put another comment in there if you don't mind, and we'll see if we get around to it. But if it's all right with you, Angela, I've got a question that I think is a little bit more up your alley.
Let's do it.
So I'm going to lovingly use a word to describe you. Okay, that word is crunchy.
It's accurate. It's fine.
Good.
It is a word I would use to describe myself.
Okay, good. So I'm not super hip with the kids, but I do know crunchy. Crunchy just means like somebody who doesn't really go with like the mainstream. Now, crunchy isn't often a word that you hear being spoken about with regards to kind of like orthodoxly Catholic people. Like when you imagine somebody who's like devoutly Catholic, you might imagine somebody who's kind of more straight-laced and like a little bit more perhaps conservative, because crunchy is a word that often winds up being used to describe more liberal people rather than conservative people. So I'm not trying to give the audience the wrong impression of who you are. What I'm saying though is that you kind of exist in this weird dichotomy where I would use the word crunchy to describe you, but I wouldn't use words like not Catholic or words like liberal to describe you. Do you think of yourself as crunchy? Are you trying to reclaim the crunchiness movement for like Catholicism or something? Tell me more about like what crunchy kind of means to you and just, I guess, being against the flow.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I was actually talking about this with my friend Tasha Rose. You might know her as Radical Mothering.
Oh, yeah.
So today we were just talking about this because we've watched a shift. So she used to be a pagan, practicing witchcraft and all that stuff. And when she was younger, practicing as a witch, she was kind of friends with all the dirty hippies, and they were more crunchy and everything. But that the pendulum has really swung in the other direction, I think. And so I actually see it more common in very traditional Catholic circles to be more crunchy, to be more naturally minded. I've been warning people about the danger of birth control, for example, for over a decade. And it was often liberals who would call me crazy when I would tell them it's a group 1 carcinogen, and that there are better ways to know about a woman's body and her cycle where you don't have to pump her full of fake hormones to know or prevent her from getting pregnant. You know what I mean? That there are better ways, more natural ways. And so for me, it really comes down to, again, that integration of how can I honor the way that I was designed? But first you have to understand how you were designed. So like what does my body tell me about the way that I was designed? For example, like sunlight is really important for us. So we should be outside because we need sunlight for vitamin D and for all that impacts every metabolic process in the body. All of those things come together, and that's the more natural end of things, the more physical, that really has a positive impact on your mind, your body, all these things. And when your mind and body are when you're taking care of those things, it's easier to have a spiritual life because you're more connected with who you are, and it's easier to relate to God. So yeah, I mean, I am crunchy. I would say I make most of my own soaps. I make my own bone broth. I make sourdough. I make sourdough crackers. I like make almost everything from scratch. Granola. I know how to make cheese now because of Tasha. Like lots of stuff. I am that person. But that's all been learned. I've taught myself how to do most of that stuff. I wasn't raised that way at all.
So you know what's kind of funny is that I was raised trad Catholic, and I wasn't raised super crunchy at all, if I'm being honest. But it's quite possible that that has more to do with the fact that I grew up within spitting distance of New York City than anything else. So I grew up in I grew up trad Catholic, but a very metropolitan trad Catholic. And what's funny now is that I live in Lexington, Kentucky. Lexington, Kentucky is cool because it's kind of like this like little hippie town that's right at the base of the Appalachian Mountains. So I go up into the Appalachian Mountains every now and then, and you want to talk about crunchy? Oh my goodness, the people living like up in like Asheville, North Carolina, and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
They are so like drum circle crunchy. Like
wow,
yeah.
I've like started my own herb garden and stuff, so I've been I'm learning those things.
My wife is literally currently cooking with herbs that my neighbors grew in their garden.
Awesome.
So Kyle says that my audio is quiet. Angela, I'm gonna go ahead and lower yours a little bit because mine is actually max. Oop, no, hold on, I can max it over this way. All right, I hope that this works. And Anton followed that as well. There was a couple comments that kind of came in that I want to bring up on the screen because they address this kind of crunchy thing. So Daniel is you and Daniel will get along really well because Daniel is a very I don't know if I want to overuse the word crunchy, but Daniel is very Catholic with like freedom or something. Like I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but you guys would get along.
Naturalistic. I mean,
maybe?
I think it's like naturalistic. I mean, I'm looking back at how God created man and woman, and like, what are the skills that we were passing on from woman to woman? I mean, yes, I had the home birth, all that stuff, like done all the home things. We homeschool, and I think that's just more natural.
Yeah, and then So Colin put this comment on the screen while you were talking about your friend who was pagan and then became Catholic. And I think that so there's definitely an aesthetic overlap. And Colin specifically says traditional. So actually I was looking at the word traditional and I was thinking traditional Catholicism. I definitely do see some kind of aesthetic overlap between some pagan stuff and traditional Catholicism. I think part of that might be because pagan rituals, to some degree, kind of try to copy like traditional Catholic stuff. I think to some extent, I'm not super good with pagan stuff, if I'm being entirely honest. And so sorry to be doing this live, but Kyle says lower your audio just a tad. I'm lowering it just a tad. And Colin chimes in, Tolkien would have loved this because I think, you know, Tolkien was probably the 1930s equivalent of crunchy. But I was talking about Appalachia and So
I'm so sorry.
No. I think I derailed myself with my volume thing. But what I was going to say is I'm becoming perhaps more crunchy over time, but I'm definitely not super crunchy yet. And the reason I say that is I don't make my own soap yet. Give me time. But we have a couple plants in our backyard. I don't think it counts as a garden, but we've got a couple plants. But our neighbors have a garden, and we participate. We've been eating a cow that we bought from my friend's farm, and we've been We signed
that's
up for a CSA at another farm, so we get like fresh produce delivered once a week.
That's awesome.
Baby steps, baby steps.
Oh,
But
that's all great. That's all great. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Are you drinking raw milk yet, though?
No,
And
because
eating raw eggs
I don't drink milk.
and liver. You don't drink.
I don't drink
See?
milk.
Are you lactose intolerant, or is your gut just needing healing so you can drink raw milk?
My wife is lactose intolerant, and so we just don't have milk in the house. And so I don't really like. I can like if I go to a coffee shop and they ask me like, do you want what kind of milk do you want in your coffee? I'll say like skim is fine, I guess. But at home I just drink my coffee black.
Sorry. We've got a baby.
Hey, baby.
Oh, and a child that is knocking over my lights. Oh, yeah, you got to fix that. Good thing I just bought these.
You're on the least professional person's YouTube channel ever, so like this is all fine. My cats are about to jump up on my lap any second, and they'll knock over my lights too.
Can you move that over there? I'm gonna correct. Okay, sweetheart. Nope, a little closer.
And I just want to say thank you, Jason, for saying that I'm in my Folklore and Evermore era. I like it.
That's so funny. Is that like a Taylor Swift reference?
It might be. I like it no matter what it is. Okay, so, and Daniel, he clarifies for us. He goes, he's pretty crunchy. Vegan, green hippie, makes his own food. So I'm glad that I used the word crunchy and I didn't overuse it. Good.
Nope.
I've got a tough question for you, Angela.
Okay.
So your channel is definitely Catholic, definitely crunchy. So my question for you is this. Do you have to be Catholic to be integrated? Can non-Catholics be integrated? Can non-Christians be integrated? What about non-theists?
In my view, no.
Okay.
Not in my definition of integrated, because at the core, in my view, at the core of being integrated is being properly aligned, mind, body, and soul to how you were created. And in understanding that, then you have to know your creator and be properly ordered and disposed to him. And so you would have, like for me, for example, the sacraments. The sacraments are a physical manifestation. Veronica, it's a feast day of St. Veronica today. So, thank you so much. She loves the limelight. But for example, the sacraments to me are just a perfect example of integration, and they help us become integrated because they're physical ways that we receive God's grace, and that spiritual life is brought into right order, right? And so I think we need to dispose ourselves of the sacraments. We must do that. And I think, for example, you become what you consume. And I believe that the Eucharist is the body and blood, soul, and divinity of our Lord. And we become more like him when we receive him in Holy Communion. So those are things that are aspects of becoming fully integrated.
So you touched on kind of like the right order earlier, and you touched on it again right now. There was a word that came to my mind at the beginning, and Colin just put that word in the chat. I'm going to pull it up. The word is teleology.
Yes, teleology.
Okay. Yep. So, so I guess don't let me. So I'm going to try to put words in your mouth that I want you to tell me if I did a good job.
Okay.
So you would say that integration might be like another way of saying like teleologically proper or something like that. And the teleologically proper life is a life that is oriented towards God or towards spending eternity with God or something like that. How'd I do?
Yeah, no, I think that teleology, I think, is really important. I'm not going to say it's the end all be all of everything, but I think it is very important to coming to an understanding of who we are.
Cool. Okay. All right. I've got another question for you. It's kind of similar, same vein. So if you became friends with just some agnostic, it doesn't have to be me. I mean, it could be me, but it doesn't have to be me. But let's just say that you became friends with some agnostic. Would you try to convert them to Catholicism? some Catholics like to take the kind of apologetic approach where it's like, hey, I'm going to recite, the teleological argument or the ontological argument or something like that, while other Catholics take the approach that's often misattributed to St. Francis of Assisi. Yes. Go out and preach to the world when necessary.
I'm glad you know better.
Yeah.
When you sent me that, I was like, yeah, except for you never said that.
Right. Yep. Misattributed to St. Francis of Assisi.
So let's be very clear. St. Francis of Assisi never said, preach the gospel always, and if necessary, use words. He never said that. The man went and literally preached to, and thought he was going to die because he was doing it.
It would be a little anachronistic if that was a real quote. I have a feeling that actually a lot of quotes that we think, not just from saints, but just from like
in general, just
any quote that's like older than 200 years old. I have I'm like kind of skeptical of quotes that are older than 200 years old. But so who cares if St. Francis of Assisi said it or not?
Yeah.
What's your take?
I get the sentiment.
Good.
I actually have friends. I have a friend that I've known since high school. I think for me, it really depends on the relationship and the approach that I will take. Yes, I will try to evangelize you in some fashion. And sometimes I'm going to be overt. I remember my early 20s when I sort of had this, reversion. It was like one of those times in my life when I just had a fire lit into my heart. And I felt like I had to be almost forceful. And I realized I pushed a lot of people away. Just because I am my disposition is to be very candid sometimes, and sometimes I lack tact. So you can imagine that I pushed some people away in the process, unfortunately, but others did convert. I had a friend of mine convert years later. He wrote me this long letter of thanking me, and it was probably one of the sweetest letters I've ever received in my life. I still have it. And I know a lot of people in my life who have converted. But I think I had to take a different approach with all of them. I have family members who have strayed. And one of my twin sister just came back into the church this Easter. And I have another sister who she is in a gay marriage, quote unquote. And she just went back to reconciliation recently. And she's making her way back. And I've, by the grace of God, been able to maintain really beautiful relationships with both of them during some of these really difficult times when we weren't aligned. So I think it really depends on the person and taking advantage of those opportunities to be prudent, but open those conversations should an opportunity arise, in doing so in a loving way instead of like the wrath of God. Because I do think people are more attracted to honey than they are vinegar, to quote another saint.
Was that actually a saint quote?
I think so, actually. I think maybe it was St. John Vianney, or I'm not sure, but that one is attributed to a saint. I'm not sure who.
If that is St. John Vianney, then I'm in trouble because that's my confirmation name.
Excuse me.
So, if you don't want to share, please don't. But how's your sister's wife? Is your sister no longer married, or?
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. So right now, I think they're living chastely. As things sort of unfold, she's going. This wife, so to speak, is attending mass with my sister and my sister's kids. And I think it's challenging for them right now, because my sister is becoming very convicted. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine, and that's where I have just so much compassion for these situations, because I look at my sister and she has set her whole life centered around this person that she does love. I mean, I think it's cruel to undermine that people genuinely can love other people in these situations. I'm not saying it's properly ordered. I don't believe that it is, but she has feelings, and I'm not gonna take that away from her. I have no right to, but we have had difficult conversations, and I think what really changed for her was having a degree of intellectual honesty, where she sort of she became convicted about some things, and I don't want to share her whole story because it's her story. It's her story.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Um, but yeah, we've had a lot of incredibly beautiful conversations, and it's been honestly an honor to watch her take this path. It's very inspiring for me because I can't imagine what it would be like to reevaluate my whole life. I mean, I've done that sometimes, looking at my faith, and those times when I've been like, is Catholicism true? And I start that investigation, because I have done that. And I imagine how hard would it be if all of a sudden I came to the conclusion that Catholicism was not true, and how much that would wreck my world. And I think that's what she's doing right now. She's deconstructing her entire world, and that is hard. That's hard.
Yeah. So very briefly, I'll kind of tell you a little bit of my story, but a little bit of my story is that, so I got married because of my Catholicism, kind of. So not kind of, I did. So I was 22. I was Catholic, kind of. Like I was in the middle of a deconstruction, but, and I got a job that was moving me across the country, and, my family made it no secret that I wouldn't really be part of the family anymore if we chose to live in sin. So I got married when I was 22. Our engagement was 3 months. Everybody thought she was pregnant. She was not. She has never been pregnant. And I think that was difficult. This is what I'm trying to get at. I thought that was very difficult. But at the end of the day, I got to be with the person that I love. And I think what's so difficult, and this isn't me passing like a value judgment on anybody who does anything. This is just me saying the idea that so I did something that I thought was difficult for my religion, but at the end of the day, I still got to be with the person that I love. And so the fact that there are some people out there who are so convicted that some of them are willing to not be with the person that they love anymore, because of their convictions, is just like mind blowing. You know what I mean? The word is like, honestly, I'm kind of getting choked up just like thinking about it, because, I'm imagining how much I love my wife, and how, frankly, there's nothing like I just straight up wouldn't, if I became convicted that like God really wanted us to get divorced, get behind me, Satan. That's kind of my,
Yeah.
I don't, sorry,
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, sorry, didn't mean to get all choked up about that.
I'm just, I'm transferring the baby back to my husband.
Yeah.
Because she's probably ready for bed.
Yeah.
And and that's why I think like having compassion, I think it's one thing to speak about something objectively and in a removed manner, where you're looking at an ideology, for example, and evaluating that, but not necessarily making judgments on persons. I mean, I think sometimes it's appropriate to make judgment with people depending on how they are putting themselves out there, whatever. My sister has never been somebody that's like in your face gay, or, she's, and so maybe that's made it easier. It'd probably be a lot harder for me if she's very flamboyant and like aggressive about it, but she's been very respectful of me. I love her dearly, and I'm excited to see the journey that she is on. Like I said, it's inspiring to me. I have to be honest about that. She is like a little Saint Augustine in my life, and it's just really amazing to watch her transform, because I hope someday to share her story with the world. And of course we'll wait and see. It's still in progress, like we all are, but she's just come such a long way. So it's really amazing to observe that.
Yeah. We've got some people in the audience who just want to say thank you for how you approached that topic with charity. So Anton says that he 100% agree, but he sounds like he's thankful for your approach there. And then I'm also I'm having Colin on my channel next week. And Colin says, as a gay man, I appreciate the charitable approach. And then, he said, it genuinely makes a big difference. So thank you. So, and he adds that it is a big cross and that he can confirm. Not spoiling anything for next week, but he can confirm. And I think our talk next week is going to be one to tune in for. Daniel says there's more talk now of gay partners living together chastely. Many see the synodal way heading towards this model. As an outsider, Daniel, I would love to see more charity. It's not really my, I'm not somebody who openly tells people. So Daniel and I have a thing where we go back and forth about is Kevin Catholic? Is he not Catholic? The thing that we kind of settle on is not practicing. So I guess my horse really isn't in this race, but I think I saw you chime in there for a second, Angela.
Yeah, I just have a thought about that. I mean, it could be a part of the quote unquote synodal way. I actually think it is still a moral evil. It is wrong to have gay couples living together chastely. And this was something my sister and I sort of had to touch on because she feels like I think a lot of Catholics do today, like this maybe is the middle way. But I think we often forget about the sin of scandal. And we don't understand how our behavior often even, for example, like I think of the teenage girl who stays the night at her boyfriend's house. Even if they don't sleep together, it's still wrong because you're giving the impression that you are living together in a married fashion. And that creates that changes your community, for example, like how people are observing your situation. They don't know that you're being chased. And so then there are more ripple effects because I just think of kids and how they're learning and things like that. It's not just, sin is not private. And I think we forget that sometimes. And so it's not me being harsh. Like I get people, they are on their own. It takes time, especially when you're deconstructing your life. But I don't think that is true charity.
Yeah. Can I push back real quick on something and just get your thoughts? So you said something about the sin of scandal and about how it could change society. And I think that what you meant was something like if we saw a whole bunch of girlfriends visiting a whole bunch of boyfriends and spending the night, even if they all publicly professed that they were being chaste, it would change society because people would think that they're not being chaste.
Well, and you're putting yourself in a situation where you're more likely to sin anyway, right? Like it's hard. If you really love somebody, speaking from experience, I'm not somebody that was a virgin when I got married, and I wish I had been. But you're not pulling yourself away from those instances where you are likely inclined to engage in that behavior. So it's not just the sin of scandal, but you're also not, you're putting yourself in an environment for temptation, which is also dangerous for your sake. So I'm sorry, go on.
Yeah. So I'll stay on the scandal thing for a second. So I almost wonder if the response there is good. We should change society. People should kind of not assume the worst all the time. And if nobody is ever, like if everybody's afraid to do something because of the sin of scandal, then nobody's opinion will ever change. Like if it doesn't become normal to live chastely with somebody that you love. So, for, your sister normal, perhaps. Exactly. So. It's not normal right now, but how does it become normal if people don't start doing it?
It will never be normal because we're human beings and we have sexual attractions, and especially I just don't think that's ever going to be normal. It's never been normal in history to do that. It is natural to procreate and you have more little babies if you're able to do that.
Have you seen the statistics on like the average number of times that like the average like husband and wife even will actually like have sex every year? It's depressing. It's very.
Well, that's really too bad.
I know, but I bring it up because I think it is actually fairly normal for married people to be living chaste lives. Now,
if they're trying to avoid having like 30 children, then yeah, maybe.
I don't even mean that. I just mean.
And there are periods of life where I think it makes sense, but yeah, I mean, there's something wrong there. I think if you're not interested in being intimate.
I agree. I have like a whole like soapbox thing that I've never done before, like on YouTube. But the soapbox thing, 2 seconds,
Go
humor
get on
me,
your
humor
soapbox.
me.
Let's do it.
I think that it's one of the most human things that a human can do, and I think that if you're not doing it with the person that you love the most, maybe they're not the person that you love the most. So when I hear about people who, complain that, they're not having it as often as they want, and it's like, it's been like, a year. I'm like, oh, geez, like,
I've never heard of that, but
really?
I believe it.
Yeah.
No.
It's not hard to find if you go to like certain corners of the internet and stuff, people complain about it all the time. And like the statistics are like frankly depressing. Like the average married, and the average married couple means like the newly married 22-year-olds and the people who've been married for 50 years. So it's possible.
Well, there could be different reasons for that. I mean, I think often when you're younger, I guess now we're just getting off on a tangent, but when you're younger, you have more hormones, it's that time to procreate, and so you're going to be naturally more inclined to that. And two, I think for younger men, that's how men find intimacy. As you get older and the longer you've been married, you don't necessarily find intimacy that way because you've been living together for so long. Like, I don't know. I don't feel that way in my own marriage. That's not the trend that I've seen. I'm just trying to understand. I don't know what it's going to be like when we're married and we're in our 60s, for example.
Sure.
I don't think that we'll see intimacy the same way because we've been together. I look at the way our marriage has grown over the last 10 years. And I met my husband when I was 17. We got married when I was 21. And we've had 5 kids in that time. I just think how I see intimacy with him is so different now. And it's like the best thing ever. Like I also see the data saying that conservative women from religious religious backgrounds have the most satisfaction with their marriages. So that's the other piece of the data. That's why I'm like, what's going on here? Because these are the women who tend to be the most satisfied, are stay-at-home moms from religious backgrounds and conservative backgrounds that are married, and they're the most content in their marriages out of all these other women. So why is that? I
hadn't heard that before. What I did know is that divorce rates were lower. I didn't know about like marriage satisfaction though, so that's interesting. And I'm gonna highlight something from the comments. So Kyle, Kyle.
Yes,
says,
yes. Chastity and abstinence are different.
Yes,
you are correct, Kyle.
And Colin says that he remembers that the Catechism just says that. Oh nope, sorry. Colin says technically chaste means that. Just rightly ordered sex. So sex within marriage is chaste. Yes. And Kyle says, yeah. So
yes, and you guys are correct. So thank you for clarifying that. That's exactly it. Yes, and that's why like 2 homosexuals living together, that would be impossible for them to live chastely because it's not properly ordered to begin with.
Well, them not engaging in sex at all would be chaste.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah, I just and you're right. Putting yourself near the temptation of sin is itself a sin, especially if you're doing it knowingly. It can be grave sin. It's like the drug addict going to a party knowing there's going to be a bunch of drugs there, and then like telling themselves that they're having pride, right? Like believing that they are strong enough to withstand the temptation, when in reality they're probably not.
I've got a question for you, because all of this sin of scandal stuff is hitting near and dear to my little tratty heart. This might sound foreign to you, but the people at my church growing up would oftentimes say that, like, going to the beach. So we grew up, like I said, within spitting distance of New York. We lived in New Jersey, so we could get down to the Jersey Shore in like an hour and a half, depending on which beach. We had a lot of people who lived within an hour of the Jersey Shore who never went down the shore. Why? Because to go down the shore is to knowingly put yourself in a near occasion of sin, for the men primarily, because you know that there's going to be women in bathing suits. And And then as Colin puts it, it creates an infinite loop of sin because so which it's a humorous way to put it, but that is how kind of how I grew up. Now my family went down the shore. My dad just made sure to give us a very stern talking to about like, now make sure that you're always averting your eyes and all that. What's your take on that? Do you think that do you think that it's a sin to go down the shore, for instance, or to go to the beach?
I think it really depends on the person and if they're struggling with pornography, do they have custody of the eyes and of the heart? You can't not live in society at all. That's a very different scenario going in public and doing something with your family. That's a very different scenario than staying the night at your boyfriend's house where it is private and deliberate. You can't, like, you go to the mall and there's pornography everywhere. Like every advertisement is basically pornography, especially if you're a woman. They're always selling sex, for example. So then do we never go
To the
like I would
mall?
imagine to the mall, going out on a boardwalk somewhere where these girls are in their crop tops or their bathing suits are basically lingerie. You like wouldn't be able to go in public at all today.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think it is really important if you are a man who struggles with custody of the eyes and heart, that is a muscle you have to grow. I can think of a time in my life when I did not have strong custody of heart, for example. And so if there were people who were saying nice things to me, all of a sudden, maybe I was more interested in them. Maybe I was paying a little bit more attention to them than I would have otherwise. And I didn't have custody of the heart. So it put me in I put myself in a lot of stupid situations because of that. And so it's just really important. It takes time to rebuild that as well. You have to have a lot of self-awareness and determination to be more prudent, so that you can approach people with dignity and be intentional about that.
Yeah. So this brings me back a little bit to the point that I was trying to get to earlier, and I don't think I properly expressed myself. So I'm gonna try again now that we've got this kind of like beach analogy in mind. So imagine American culture in the 1920s versus the 2020s. Bathing suits look very different now than they did 100 years ago. And that's
They're not
because
bathing suits. They're like little pieces of cloth.
sure. But I don't think that I shouldn't say any, but I don't imagine that the average American man today would feel the need to avert their eyes lest they fall into lust for looking at the average bathing suit from 50 years ago, right? Probably. So clearly, but the people who lived 100 years ago would probably look at the bathing suits from 50 years ago and say that they're very scandalous. So in that sense, society has changed.
Yeah.
And because it changed, the occasions of sin kind of became fewer. So to some extent, if we train our men right, and that sounds really terrible, but you know what I mean, where like to some extent, if we just stop sexualizing things all the time, the occasion of sin kind of gets removed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what do you think?
I think I see what you're saying, but I think we have more occasion for sin than ever before because we have porn theaters in our pockets. So we're actually just priming people to view each other objectively. I don't know if I've ever publicly shared this, but there's a person in my life from the time I was a very small child that would sexualize me and like as a very young child, make comments about my body. And I can remember how that made me feel. And I didn't have the language to talk about that, but I knew it was wrong innately. And I think it's not that the occasions of sin have decreased. We've just shifted the Overton window. And that's a problem. That's a real problem. Because we have so degraded the dignity of the human person to such a degree that we don't even see each other as persons anymore a lot of the time. Like you and I do, but culturally, I mean, and it's a totally different thing. Like, and the way women present themselves. I was just talking about this earlier, but like a lot of Catholic influencers, especially women, like put themselves out there with these like subtle undertones of like the Catholic girl thirst trap, kind of.
I'm
Do
sorry.
you know
You're
what
gonna wait. No.
do you know what I mean though? Because
Before
it's
before
like,
we go there, before we go
yeah,
there, I just want to highlight Colin's comment. This came in when you were talking about
yeah.
how you felt as even a young girl.
Mm-hmm.
So Colin just wants to say that he's so
Thanks,
sorry to
Colin.
hear that. Okay, now we can go to what is Catholic girl thirst trap?
It's
What is
like
this?
it's this weird phenomenon. It's not just Catholic girls, but I see Christian influencers do it all the time where they're like posting pictures of themselves. You know, they're trying to be like low key sexy, cute, and then they post like a quote under it from sacred scripture. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
So hold on,
it's really weird to me.
and it's always very modest. Like they'll be, wearing shirts that come up to here and
Yes.
long sleeves, but they try to look as cute as they can. It's maybe it's even trad wife core, which is
I don't know
hilarious.
because like I would consider myself a trad wife, and I don't do these things.
That's
I don't
true.
understand them. Um, there
Uh,
is some. I don't know
Pre-trad
how else
wife.
to describe it. I'm still forming my thoughts on this because it's something that I'm noticing more and more, and it's just tough because social media really rewards that kind of behavior. You know, every girl wants like dozens of strangers to tell her how beautiful she is, and dozens of strangers will because men are so used to staring at girls on the screen. And the men feel like it's better when the girl is covered up. Like Christian men think it's better. Like at least I'm not looking at that naked woman on this other page or whatever. And so I'm just going to oogle at this other girl, even though I'm a married man, for example. And even she's totally dressed, so it's okay. It's okay that I'm oogling her. And
Yeah.
these girls, they're like, please affirm me, affirm me, affirm me. And I get it. Like their brain is psychologically like that endorphin hit, that dopamine hit every time somebody likes the picture. I get it, but it does such a disservice to everybody. Like this is not Christian. This is not a Christian approach to social media. I think you can be cute without being like low key seductive in like a weird way. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have it all formulated, but there's something there that I'm noticing. And I know other people have noticed it too.
I'm so far out of my depth right now that I don't think
Weird.
so yeah, I'm gonna comment on it despite the fact that I probably shouldn't. Um, so first of all, Rosemary popped in a while ago saying hi, and then
Hi,
she
Rosemary.
she added a comment. This is not you, and then so let me just say, Colin phrases as well. It's definitely a fetish for some. And Colin's probably right. I think that some people kind of fetishize I'm getting compliments, but they're from good Catholic men. And I'm getting complimented despite the fact that I'm dressed, with
And
my
these
neckline.
men have a fetish for like the trad wife
Yes.
aesthetic. It's like
Yes.
the trad wife core stuff. Like the woman that was on Michael Knowles' show recently, she drives me absolutely insane. That is not a trad wife. She's not a trad wife. I'm sorry. She's just LARPing as one because men are obsessed with her.
Yes. Wait, are you talking about somebody in particular, or because
It's a
again,
larger problem, but I just see it in this part of Catholic and Christian conservative
yes,
commentariat. It's weird.
yes, it's 100% like a group of metropolitan people, and I say that I'm metropolitan. I'm learning how to be a little bit more self-sufficient, but I'm metropolitan by and large. But it's a whole bunch of these people who have found that they fit in when they use the word based and they LARP as if they are from the 1940s and 50s.
It's just not.
And so they do.
This is not, and I know people would be like, "Oh, it's because Angela's jealous. Nobody likes her stuff." Like, no, legit, I don't. I'm a content creator that does not just make vapid content just for the sake of making content. I just don't. I don't have time for that.
Yeah. It's like a real maid versus somebody wearing like a Japanese maid outfit. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a yeah. And Jason, we're gonna have to talk more about this at some time. The homoeroticism of trad male culture. So never mind. I'm so far out of my
Off the
depth.
rails.
I'm so far out of my depth. I have one final question for you, Angela, but before I just change the topic, I just want to make sure that I'm not cutting you off. Are you?
No, like I said,
Okay.
I'm still working through some of these things, but it's just, I don't know. Here we are. Here
Here
I
we
am.
are. Here we both are. This was not the stream that I thought that we were going to have
Not the
tonight.
stream you were expecting. I'm
No,
so
it was not.
sorry.
Hey, this was fun. I've got one more question for you though, and this is perhaps the most challenging question of the evening. So get ready, buckle up. So if I'm not mistaken, you've gone on record in the past, on stream, you've stated that your favorite cocktail is an old fashioned.
Yes.
Okay. Bourbon is
This is true.
Bourbon is clearly and definitively the most objectively good alcohol. All ethanol is teleologically ordered to be bourbon, and so any other alcohol is really just not living up to its God-given purpose.
Yes.
Why is this true?
It is right and just.
It is.
I just love bourbon. One, because I have a thyroid condition, and so like gluten is hard for me to digest, but bourbon is actually really easy for me to drink. I just love old fashions. I like that they're sweet, but you can just sip on it. They're all the flavors. You can have like that smokiness and the vanilla and the caramel and the leather. Like you just have all these wonderful flavor profiles. And it's a nice drink to sip on. I just love it. I haven't had an old fashioned in a while, but I love them. They're great.
When you make it old fashioned, do you know if you prefer it using a rye bourbon or a wheated bourbon?
Yeah, I think I do prefer the rye. And I think that's
too.
Yeah. All right. We're going to have one sometime. Next time we want to.
Sorry, Jason.
You really are a failed rad trad.
Yeah, because that's... Oh, we won't get off the rails again, but the trads love their bourbon, too, and their cigars.
I didn't know that was a thing, but yes, I guess we do.
Except for Matt Fradd, because Matt Fradd's all about, like, how all bourbon tastes the same. Yes, he does. But he also is going straight to hell because he thinks that all bourbon tastes the same. So, sorry, I don't make the rules, Matt Fradd. I don't make the rules. Somebody's going to clip that and send it to him. But I think Colin says he's too gay for bourbon. Plus too many college. Were you drinking bourbon, Colin? I was not drinking bourbon in college.
I know, I was not either.
Wow, Colin. Save some class for the rest of us. Jeez.
Seriously.
Jason's a simple girl. Vodka lemonade. Hey, there's nothing wrong with vodka lemonade. Although, Jason, bourbon lemonade. Give it a shot. Bourbon,
yes, actually, yes.
Bourbon, pink lemonade too.
Really, with pink? I haven't done it with pink lemonade.
Either one. They're good. Give it a shot, Jason. Don't knock until you try it. Give it a shot. Okay, that went all sorts of different places.
Yeah, that was wild.
That was wild. But I've got us just about at the top of the half hour. So, Angela, thank you so much for coming on. But before we sign off, I want to let everybody in the audience know that your channel is linked in the video description down below. What is going on with you? What are you working on next? Tell us what's going on with you.
Thanks. I have been on a little bit of a hiatus. I've been very sick for the last several months. I keep getting bronchitis and stuff. So hopefully that's why I'm coughing a little bit tonight and drinking water every 5 seconds. But I'm going to be having Jason from Tradman on to talk about his conversion story soon. I am doing a home birth episode, talk about Crunchy, but I am having another Catholic midwife on to talk about home birth soon, and as well as Devin Schatt, hopefully, from Fathers of St. Joseph to talk about the crisis of fatherhood. Like I talk about all kinds of stuff, which is, I would say, something that makes me unique as a female content creator. I really don't have like a single audience. I'm not just for women, but I do have a lot of great content for men. So feel free to check it out. I've had some amazing interviews with people like Dan Burke, talking about meditative prayer. And I've interviewed people like Charles Franny to talk about his book, Slaying Dragons, and Therese Piccola about her liberation through exorcism, the rite of exorcism, and all kinds of great stuff. So I hope you come over. I'm just short of 500 subscribers. So if you want to join me over there, I'll hit that 500 mark, and I'll be like, still nobody on YouTube, but thanks if you joined me over there.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Angela. And thanks again for coming on the show. This was awesome having you on. I think that we had a great conversation. Mr. Movie, if you want to ask a question, I'll answer it. We'll address it in the comment sections later. How about that? How does that sound, Angela?
Sounds good.
Cool. All right. Thanks again, everybody. And
Bye. Thank you.
Until next time.